Hey, so I wanted to talk about modafinil again. It's been a while since I've given an update on modafinil. Um, Over the past, I guess, month or so, I've been up in Oregon, so moved across the country. Um, so I haven't had a lot of time to focus on my normal routine of vlogging and stuff. So this is a pretty delayed update as opposed to my, you know, multi times a week updates before previously on modafinil. So here goes nothing. I've had some pretty good results, ups and downs, really figuring out the limitations of modafinil. Um, I found that my dose is 100 milligrams with two choline pills. I forget how much those are roughly, but average size doses of choline. So I take those in the morning before 8 a.m. Typically, if I take it past 8, it's, no later than 9. If it's past 9 a.m., I don't take it at all. But I'm finding that uh, my limits for it are are kind of more like it's almost like I'm feeling out the limit. So like it's really hard to the limits aren't very objective as anyone knows. It's your brain. So it's like if we knew exactly where the boundaries were and we didn't have to discover them and feel them out, then this would all be a lot easier and I probably wouldn't even need modafinil. So what I've found with my limitations are when I'm learning things, specifically, I've been learning math and code recently. So, as a very creative, these are two of the hardest things for me to learn. Um, they are two of the most fulfilling things for me to learn. It's just really hard for me to comprehend them. And the progress I've been making is interesting. So when I'm learning something that I know, um, let's say HTML or a type of math that I'm already familiar with. I'm doing like a summary on Khan Academy of something I've already learned. It's pretty much it just feels repetitive. Like I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable. I don't even need to check my work sort of thing. That feeling. Um, Learning everything new on modafinil beyond that initial like new concept. So when I was using modafinil while starting to learn math and code, it all was difficult. But now that I'm kind of in the flow of things, I have a foundation set. Um, on modafinil, I feel no difference between repetitive, like, solidifying things that I already know and learning new things. But when I'm off of modafinil, like today I'm off of modafinil, yesterday I was off of modafinil, I find that learning new things, even with the foundation I have in math and code, is challenging. Repetitive stuff is it's about the same as it is with modafinil. I just feel like I'm slower with it. Um, I'm more distracted by internal things, my body and like memories and things pop into my head from the past or the future that I want to do, and those distract me more than when I'm on modafinil. Um, but other from that, it's not any more difficult to do the repetitive stuff. However, I am finding my boundaries on the things that are repetitive that I do know versus the things that I don't know and I kind of memorized. So that's really interesting to so I'm very interested in doing the repetitive mastery stuff, reinforcing things off of modafinil versus on modafinil, and I want to lean more towards learning new things with modafinil. as I tend to blaze through those and retain them just as well as spending several times longer learning new things off of modafinil. So some other boundaries I've learned. I'm trying a new strategy right now to test out a hypothesis that I have. I find that if I go more than 3 days in a row with modafinil, I mentally burn out. And, it's just kind of like when you push yourself too long with caffeine. You can be on caffeine several days, maybe a week, but then it's just, you're kind of like a zombie. And I found something similar with modafinil. And that is, instead of me being wired out and really irritable, I find that I almost completely forget about my autonomous self-maintenance stuff. So I find I catch myself like really, really having to go to the bathroom, or really, really, really like starving. So I forget about that self-care, self-maintenance stuff. And I'm less likely to rest if I've been on modafinil more than 3 days. So I'm more likely to get burned out physically and mentally more than 3 days on modafinil. And I found that its effectiveness, since I push myself so hard in things that I'm typically pretty weak at, which is, going really hard and focusing, learning new things. And I go harder with everything. When I'm at the gym with modafinil, I go harder than I do. So it's easier for me to ignore those internal things that are so distracting for me, like, pains and aches, which are usually pretty debilitating for me, even when they're just mild. Debilitating in a sense of I'm so distracted, it's so hard for me to focus. So that being said, I find that, I found kind of a sweet spot between 2 or 3 days. So I'm testing that hypothesis right now. So I was just on 3 days of modafinil on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And today is day 2 off of modafinil. And previously, before that, I was off of modafinil for a day on Thanksgiving. And 2 days before that, I was on modafinil. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I was on modafinil. And Thursday I was off of it. So I've been testing this hypothesis that 2 days on, 1 day off, or 3 days on, 2 days off, and it seems to be pretty spot on. So I'm going to be testing that more. I'm going to go to trying 2 days on, 1 day off for a week or two, and then after that, 3 days on, 2 days off for a couple weeks. So hopefully I'll give updates more often than I have been. But right now, I'm doing what I can do, making a lot of progress, finding that there's very little downside to modafinil. All of its cons are mild. For me personally, they're less than caffeine, way, way more mild than caffeine for me. But that being said, I have really adverse reactions to a lot of drugs. So caffeine kind of treats me like cocaine. I mean, I can get drunk on non-alcoholic beer with between 0 and 1% alcohol. So it's like I'm pretty sensitive to stuff. So I'm finding that modafinil, it has a pretty extreme potency for most people, but most people don't find an extreme potency for things like, alcohol and cannabis and those things. And I do. So I find it kind of pretty on point with me that I have a pretty mediocre reaction to modafinil. I've never had more than a mild tension headache. Like my eyes are really strained because I'm looking at the screen so much. So it's been pretty smooth sailing with this. I enjoy it thoroughly. So yeah, until next time.